How's it going, everyone? This is Vandal Designs here, and today I'll be bringing you episode 3 in this design tutorial series I'm doing. I know it's been a pretty good while since last episode. I've been busy with the end of the semester. Now obviously we're in, as recording right now, I'm July 1st, so obviously school's been done for like 2 months now. I just have been procrastinating, but now I feel like I've got the motivation to crank these out. Hopefully I'll be able to, you know, put out a few tutorials this summer, yeah, let's just hope I can keep that promise. So without further ado, in this episode I'll be showing you how to cut out players. So first thing we're gonna do, just open up this. I've got a folder for all my player JPEGs. Just take it and drag it right in. So we're going to be doing map Barzal right here. So you know, obviously the image is nice and pretty crisp. So yeah, let's get to cutting this. So there's multiple ways to cut it out. Ultimately, if you've been doing this for a while and you've got your own method, your own way of doing it, and you're real comfortable, you can, you know, crank out some selections real quickly. You can do it real quickly. I'd suggest staying to that. Really, there's no reason to change if you're already doing well with what you got. With what you've got. But mainly there are, I'd say, 3 main selection methods. There's the quick select tool, which is the one I'll be showing today. It's the one I use in most cases. There's the pen tool, which is using the pen tool to manually go around the player. This is a method I used to use, but I don't anymore. And there is also, I guess, the eraser tool, which is just, you know, like erasing the player, or erasing around the player. I know a few people who do that. I would recommend against that, to be honest, unless you got like a tablet or something hooked up to your computer. Yeah, it seems like a pretty long and tedious way. So let's get right into this quick selection method tool. So the shortcut for quick select is W, so that's good to know. You know, you can hit W, go right here, and there's also a button right here. I think this was introduced into CC 2018, so if you have CC 2018 or later, you should have this button, select subject. So if you click on here, boom, makes a rough selection of Barzal. Now if you've got multiple people who are in focus, it's going to select all of them. So if you've got multiple people in focus in the shot, or let's say like this shot right here, right, Domi is obviously the subject, but there's still an arm here. There's whoever this is, probably Shea Weber, I think, right here, right, like he's taken up. Actually, that's probably Jeff Petrie. Either way, you've got, you know, all these things in the way that would hinder the selection of Domi. So in this case, it's fine because he's the only guy here. The only people in the background are here, and they're super out of focus, so there's no worry about that. But keep in mind that you should have, like, if you're going to use the select subject tool, your player should be just an individual player, or he should be alone in the picture, is what I'm trying to say. If it's not the case, then, and you want to use the quick select tool, basically what this does is you click here. As you can see, it made a selection of this. It basically selects little chunks. Oh, it selected too much, so if I hold Alt right here, Alt is to subtract, so I'm going to subtract here. And basically what it does is this tool uses edges and contrast between pixels to determine the edges and to determine the selection. So you just kind of click. You can go with a smaller brush, paint over it like this. If you want to resize the brush, like I'm doing right here, right? This on PC, you need to hold Alt and right click, and then just drag from left to right. And on Mac, it is Control Option click, and then you drag from left to right. That's how you resize your brush. You can also use the brackets on your keyboard. I don't use the brackets personally, I use this. So this is how you would select it, just going around here. You can also hit Q on your keyboard, and this will toggle this view. This is the, I don't know what this is called actually. It's called the quick mask mode. So basically what this does is it shows you what the mask is currently selecting. So you can hit Q, hit it again, and resume your selection. You can also, if you double click right here on the quick thing, you can change the color. It should be red by default. I've changed it to this purplish magenta. So yeah, either way, I'm not gonna use this method for here because the select subject works just fine. So obviously, very rough and bad selection. As you can see, like over here, it's not well done. The inside of the arm right here, it shouldn't be selected. Around the skates, the blades aren't selected. This whole hole right here in between his legs, none of that should be selected. His visor isn't well selected either. So what I like to do is I always start right here, right to the right of his head. It's like you don't need to do that. It's just my go-to starting point. And then I take the either quick select tool or the polygonal lasso tool, and holding shift is to add, alt or option is to subtract. So I just go around, and if you hit command, right, you see how like this point right here obviously doesn't connect back here, but if you hit command and click, you see this little circle appears. It will do a straight line right back to here. Boom, and close off the selection. So here I'm going to hold alt and go around here, go around his nose, his lip, and then click command, little circle pops up, and boom, close off the selection. So now just go around. This one's a tiny bit trickier than your average picture, simply because he's wearing a white jersey. White jerseys always make it a little more complicated, at least in hockey, right? Because hockey, the boards are white, the ice is white. In other sports, it's not so bad, just because, you know, usually like green fields or, you know, brown basketball courts, and the crowd's never really a problem usually. Alright, so once again, I'm hitting Q to toggle this, going around and just looking for the imperfections and fixing those. Alright, so right here, it's a little hard to tell exactly. It's actually so tiny. Oftentimes it's going to be bigger. In fact, it's so insignificant that I usually wouldn't cut this out right here. But just for the sake of the tutorial, I kind of have to do it. So you see right here, there's kind of a tiny little hole in the lace here. When you're doing this rough selection, don't cut that out yet, because the next step is going to be smoothing out the selection. And smoothing this tiny little hole is going to really mess it up. It's too small of a hole. Smoothing it will not look good. So what you want to do, right, is not any little holes like this. Usually in the skate holders as well. See, this hole is absolutely tiny, but usually they're bigger than that, and you still don't want to select them. So usually the hole in the skate, or the holes in the skate blade holders, or the any holes, you know, in the laces, sometimes they're bigger than this. You don't wanna like refine the selection. You don't wanna subtract them like this, because you're gonna do that later. Because as I just said, smoothing it will just completely mess it up. So I'm just gonna continue around here, selecting this player. It's a little hard to see right here where the edges are. Sometimes there's some guesswork involved, and to be honest, most of the time, right, once you've got this guy cut out and you've got him like completely put in a separate background, it doesn't really matter if, oh well, let's say, you know, there's a few pixels here missing of the sock that I'm just not seeing. It doesn't matter, no one's gonna notice. This looks fine. In fact, it almost looks like this whole thing might be a part of the socks. Like, it's so hard to tell. Yeah, see, like, I don't know, but it's not like anyone's ever going to notice. So let's just keep on going. Alright, so the rough selection is done. So now it's time for smoothing, right? So first thing I want to point out though, as you can see the hair right here, not super well selected. That is by intention because there is a tool to select hair and to refine hair. It's not the greatest, but in this case it's like dark brown on white. It should work very well, but usually with longer hair or like more curly hair, it can be a little tough. But basically with hair, what you want to do is kind of just make a selection around it like this. And so yeah, so now the selection is far from done. We've got the player pretty much fully selected out. We're not missing any elements, but the main problem here is that the quick select tool, whether you be using it, you know, the quick select tool itself or just the select subject button, it makes pretty natural or pretty choppy cutouts, right? So if you zoom in right here on his shoulder, you can see how this is like very like jaggedy. It doesn't look great on his other side right here too. So to counter that, we want to smooth this out. So select basically any sort of selection tool. So either the lasso tool, the marquee tool, the quick select tool, because all these have one thing in common. Well, two things in common is they're selection tools. They allow you to select things, but they also have this little select and mask button right at the top here. So let's click on that, select and mask, and then this pops up a new window, which is the select and mask window. So from here, it's pretty simple. You want to go to the smooth tab and enter maybe 10. It depends on the picture, right? This picture, where are the dimensions here? Where are they? This picture is 3200 by 2134. So a pretty good quality picture, right? So there's a lot of pixels here, and this smooth, it works, I believe. It doesn't say pixels, but I'm pretty sure it's in pixels. Or it might not be, but either way, depending on the picture, depending on the jaggedness of the cutout, you might go anywhere between 10 and 20. I don't think I've ever gone above 20. Let's go here, like 16 probably looks good. Feather, you don't want to touch that. This basically blurs it. So the only time you really want to touch feather is if the selection is massively jagged, like it is so bad that you not just need smoothing, you also need feather. In this case, it's fine. Then up next is contrast. Smoothing and feather also, if you use it, blurs the edges a little bit. Here it's pretty decent actually, but upping the contrast will make it so that that blurriness leaves. This right here you do not want. I hope the YouTube doesn't compress it so much that you can't see this, but this is like a super crisp edge. You don't want that. You want a little blurriness to it, or else it just feels way too sharp. In this case, I think 15% contrast. And finally, shift edge. This is to remove any sort of little fringe on the outside. There actually doesn't seem to be any right here. Well, there's a little here. This actually seems pretty decent, but usually want to shift this inward. And by the way, if you hold, if you just use the arrow keys, it goes in increments of 1. Right here, as you can see, 10, 11, 12. If you hold shift while doing that, it goes in increments of 10. Same thing goes for all of these, except for feather. Feather goes in increments of 0.1 and then 1. Kind of the same concept, but you know. So, oh, I don't want that. So right here, minus 10, minus 20. I think we're gonna go with minus 20 here. So yeah, this looks pretty decent. This part right here looks weird. Yet it is part of the jersey, so we'll keep it in. Also, forgot to mention, usually I think the default view is onion skin, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's onion skin. I like to set it to overlay, change the color to whatever you want. I like to set it to this, you know, cyan or magenta pink, just because there's no NHL jersey that matches this color, so it'll pop out against any single player I ever want to cut out. And I crank up the opacity to 100 just so that the background doesn't seep through whatsoever. It is 100%, and if I would need to see the background, I can just toggle it, or change the opacity and mess with that. So now that we have that, we're good. The hair is still not cut out. That is fine. We'll do that next step. So let's click OK, and then once again click select and mask, and now we'll take care of the hair. So hit R, that goes to the refine tool. It's this little tool right here. Make the brush a little bigger than this, and then just brush over the hair like this. Boom. Now this little weird square pops up. I'm pretty sure this is a graphical glitch. If we change the view from onion skin back to overlay, there we go. See? Boom, now the hair's cut out. We can go to, I didn't want to click that. We can go to radius, maybe go up 1 pixel. Let's not do that actually. Set the smooth up just a little bit, maybe to 5. And shift edges, negative 10%. There we go. So just looking around now, it's time to refine a little bit. You can go to the polygonal lasso tool right here and refine a little bit. So this little white part of the blade, not good. That seems to be it really. I'm pretty sure this white part is, yeah, it's from the pant stripe, and in fact a decent chunk of the pant stripe is missing. But do know that generally missing elements are not a huge deal, simply because if it's missing and you can't see it, then no one's gonna notice, right? If for some reason you got like well, I mean, simple as that. Tell me, what is more noticeable? This right here, where you can see all these little white outlines around here. You can see all these white outlines around here, or this right here, negative 100, right? Where obviously some chunks of the jersey are being chopped off. But do you really notice? Do you really notice when anything gets chopped off? Not really. So it's better to, cut off too much than to cut off not enough. So now that we have the hair, looking around, everything seems to be pretty refined. Let's just go right inside this glove real quick. Change the view mode on accident. There we go, and then click OK. Hey, future Noah that's editing the video right now. You know that little hole in these lace that I mentioned earlier that I would say I would get back to? Well, yeah, I didn't do that. I forgot about it. So yeah, basically this point in the process is where you'd go through and cut out any of those small laces, the holes in the skate blade, or the skate blade holder rather, and all those little tiny details that I told you to ignore earlier. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. I just forgot to do it. Back to the video. So that is pretty much it. Now you can just go right here to the mask tool, click on mask, and boom, you've got him masked out. Another thing that I like to do is right here, just going to take this and holding Alt, I'm going to click on the layer and duplicate it by dragging it underneath. So I'm just going to click here, double click on the name, call this Ice, double click here, call this Barzell, hit Command Shift O to make him into a smart object. Obviously that Command Shift O function is a custom command, which I showed you in that very first episode. And so by doing this, right, I've got the ice right here. I'm going to click on the mask for the ice, and I'm going to hit Command Delete to fill it with black. Black is my background color right here, so Command backspace, and that fills it with black. So now, let's say I'm going to create a new document, and this is going to be where I'm going to do my design. I'm going to drag these two right here, drag them right into here. I can resize them, and basically what this allows me to do is keep the ice, because if you want to do shadows, right? If you want to do shadows and make them look natural, the best way to do so is simply by using the original shadows. If I make this orange, the background orange just like this, and change the ice blend mode from normal to multiply. Look at that. Look how natural those shadows look, because there's no way to make a shadow more natural than the actual shadow from the original picture, right? So that looks pretty good. It's bothering me. There we go. Now the orange matches. So there we go. Now we've got you know, the cutout of Barzell, but we also have the picture of the ice. You don't need to do this. It's just something that I like to do, and usually, especially in this case, right, the ice looks very like nice and crisp. There's no other players around it, so it's just like a very clean slate of ice. You could also do something like this and not have it set to multiply, set it to normal, and just kind of brush it in with a mask. The mask right here, I don't think I've talked about masks last episode. No, basically how masks work is, you can see right here, there's black and there's white. What is white is being shown, what is black is being hidden. So it's basically a way to erase things without actually deleting the pixels, so you can go back and change them. You should always use masks, never erase with the eraser tool, always use masks. So yeah, you can kind of do something like this, you know, kind of have like a little bit of a really nice crisp ice. Just made it black and white just to remove colors from the ice. And yeah, just like that. And I think that the final thing right here is to go to the crop tool, hit C, and then just drag those edges in, right? And just like crop it nice and tight without actually, you know, cutting off any pixels. Crop it nice and tight. Then go to Save As, which is Command-Shift-S or Control-Shift-S if you're on PC. And I like to save all my players in a player PNG folder. I've got like 900 of them. Change the format to PNG. I'm gonna call this Barzell Matthew. How many do I have? Barzell Matthew, this is the 8th one. And what's cool on Mac is you can actually assign tags. So what I do is New York Islanders, then hit save. Then there's a little dialog option, just click OK. The default settings are completely fine. And that is it. I've got my player PNG folder right here, which you can just, this only works for Mac, obviously. You can sort by tags, and then boom, you've got all your players sorted by team. You've got Matthew Barzell right here, the new cutout. You'll see here, it looks a little blurry, the hair looks a little whack, but as you can see right here, it doesn't look that bad. And you can barely notice, especially once you'll have a full design going with a bunch of color correction, a bunch of effects. You won't notice that. So I think that'll do it right here. That is how I cut out players. If you've never done anything like this before, you can go ahead and follow this tutorial. If you do know how to cut out players, if you've already got your own method, I mean, you can switch if you want, but I suggest keeping with what you are comfortable with. So yeah, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I'll try my best to upload more tutorials and just be be more active on this channel, posting speed arts, posting tutorials, stuff like that. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful to you, and I will see you next time.